Thank you very much, and apologies for listening to Ben and I chattering on as we usually do. I think in the new normal, we don't get to see each other very often, so this is an excuse for us to have a waffle. So I apologise for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for coming along. Now I'm gonna admit something here. All right, I am both excited and nervous of doing this because I'm in uncharted territory with this in terms of my skill set as well. So I want to introduce, or we want to introduce a new, a novel thing for you today. This is the MaSH engine. It's based, it's another component, another feature set that's been added to the amazing Foldr product. Now, as a little bit of a start of a 10 on this, I'm going to say this is not a Foldr demo session. We will just briefly touch on the product again. But if you, by the end of this or straight away, aren't that familiar with the Foldr product or would like a refresh on Foldr because of all the new features that have come into it, or haven't spoken to us for a while, you'd like for others either to host a show and tell on the full Foldr product in terms of a webinar, or you'd like to get a one-on-one demo, then put it in the chat, reach out to the team. They're all there. They'll get those slammed in the diary straight away. Unfortunately, time-wise, the Foldr product is now so broad and so powerful, we can't do this and MaSH and everything in one webinar. So there are previous webinars as well. Maybe one of the guys will share a link to our pre-recorded webinars, so you can go and take a look at those. But
I will put that in the chat now, Damo. Don't worry, I will get the links all sorted for everybody.
Perfect, wonderful. But as I say, if either straight away or during this you think, hang on, I could do with a bit of a refresh on Foldr, let us know, because we will happily run another webinar on the product, or of course organize one-to-one demos for your sales or technical team, or both, or whatever you want. But today is all about MaSH. So I'm going to start, as I always do, with my why. Why are we talking about a product like this? Why are Select Tech? We're not removing ourselves by any stretch from our marvelous paper cut heritage and product and customers. That is, of course, a massive focus and still one of our major portfolio elements and support elements. But there is a big world of change going on out there. This is data, and these slides we've used and talked about over the last 18 months. Some of this has been driven by the whole pandemic thing. Some of it's just an acceleration of what we kind of predicted to happen in the market anyway. And as ever, if you want any of the reports or links or anything that we're using for these, for these bits of information for your own marketing or for your own sales education stuff, then feel free to, again, slam it in the chat, say whether you'd like it. So really do interact with the team, guys. There's a lot of Select Techers on available for you today. But we do know that even if we're talking about paper process, the digitization side of this and the cloud digital workflow side of it is definitely on the rise. There's massive change in that market space for various reasons. And if we kind of take a look at this, where we're really focusing with that Foldr product is the ability for us to pull together multiple storage elements. Okay, so and the real reason this is super interesting to both Foldr and us is when we really dig down into what our customers are looking for. As you'll be aware, we're bringing the paper Hive product to market, we're bringing other tools to market which start to tread across this kind of cloud transformation sort of feel as well. And generally, most organizations, when we really look under it, it isn't a simple question of, are you a Microsoft Cloud customer? Are you a Google Cloud customer? But most of the organizations out there, either by happy accident or by strategy, are adopting something somewhere between the two. There is still premise storage, there are still hybrid offerings. So this kind of mix and match of different stuff. In fact, when you look at this, in organizations, most corporate organizations, and obviously to have these kind of numbers, these are large scale, but even in SME, SMB spaces, which in fairness is a large part of our market, most organizations identified about 30 different cloud repositories is because people have worked out processes where they can't they can't do a certain thing with a particular piece of software and they get a workaround. They take photos, they use a Google form, they throw things into their OneDrive on their personal account. All kinds of things like this are happening as people need to adopt a new normals. They take on new devices, video ID happens, all this kind of good stuff. And you'll see that organizations have massively disparate storage. You know, in some of these corporates, you're talking, the reality is 2,000 different actively used repositories on any one time. So to have a product like Foldr that can span different storage, different devices, all of those good things, this is really where Foldr does fit, and it pulls in and starts to allow us to walk away or step away from the more traditional ECM type tools where we are sat talking about accounts payable process or HR onboarding. And those are still very valuable. We still answer them both with Foldr and of course our full fat square 9 offering or the impressive global capture offering. We offer all of those bits, but there's a much bigger story out there spread across all of those different storage repositories, those different transformations that are happening right now. And you can see hopefully on the screen the different areas that are existing out there. So simply by running with ECM or workflow that fits in one of those particular things, you're really only touching a very small part of what organizations do. And a lot of those organizations are having to leverage lots and lots of different platforms to make that work. And that really is where the power of Foldr comes together. Because Foldr, let's just refresh who they are in terms of what that, you know, as an organization. About 7-8 years ago, a bunch of lads were tasked to solve a problem. Sat in a school, here's a bunch of iPads, please make them work. And anybody who was an early iPad adopter will know it was amazing, but it didn't talk to anything. So it was a fairly significant problem. So what they did, and one of our unicorn hosts, which still unicorns for me, guys, we're looking for product with a lot of experience, a large user base, great knowledge base, great commercials, looks really cool, does something amazing. You've never heard of it. Foldr is one of those. So it's been in development for about 8 years. The 3 guys or 4 guys who invented it still own it. They're still developing it. They're still in Bristol, where it's Foldr, because they are, of course, in the right end of the planet. They are on the southwest of the UK. On any given day, Foldr has 250,000 iOS users alone. It's a really, really, really well tested, proven application. You've just never heard of it. You've never seen it. It's a unicorn, okay? And the core premise of this, just in this very fast rehash of what Foldr is, without showing you all of it, okay, is Foldr has the ability for you to search on, manipulate, share any file, okay, on basically any storage. So OneDrive, Box, Dropbox, SharePoint, AWS, Google Drive, Windows premise servers, WebDAV locations, SFTP locations, basically anything and any device. There are clients for Mac, Windows, Android. There's a web browser that works on literally anything with a web browser. So suddenly any file on any storage on any device. And the things that we can do in there, I don't like reading through bullet lists. I'm sure you guys can read, but the real headline for me, single sign-on. If you're signed into Foldr, you're signed into all of those storages. You know, storages. There we go. It's not the. I'm not sure what the plural of storage is, but there we go.
Storages.
Storages. Is it?
Storages.
Is it like sheep and sheeps? Sheep and sheeps. Gooses and geeses?
Storage.
I don't know. So I like that. Yeah. Maybe we should think of what that. Answers in the chat, guys. If anyone can think of a good name for the collective of storage, we'll take that. And we promise we'll use it. Okay, but don't forget, Foldr can OCR documents in place. So if we're coming from a traditional document capture, document archiving perspective, we can dump documents into any storage and OCR them in place. If you have customers who have thousands and thousands of PDF files that they came off of lovely MFD product without any OCR, don't move them, don't put them through a capture engine, leave them where they are, OCR them in place. Very, very difficult thing to do with anything else. And then we could take that even further, because Foldr has the ability to put metadata fields, field values that can be driven from lists, can be driven from databases, can be driven from all kinds of places on any storage. So even if it's just a traditional Windows server with an SMB Windows share and you've got thousands of files in it, you can now make those files content searchable and you can make them field searchable. We can add fields for department, approval status, you name it, you can create it. And then, of course, the real big one that we'll come into, Foldr is fully mobile friendly. So mobile capture also is included in the core product. Multi-page mobile capture document scanner on your phone, in your pocket, as well as document annotation, sharing, all of that great stuff without VPNs, blah. And then the last bout of clever we released was that Foldr has a template capture engine. You can get templates to recognize by zones, barcodes, regex. We can do line items, multi-value fields, table extraction, and we can do that on documents without moving them. So those thousands of files that in a Windows directory can now do template recognition. They can populate the fields without moving them in place. Now, I'm sure somebody on this chat can prove me wrong, but I don't think that is possible with another application currently. I think it is a Google whack. And if you don't know what that is, Google whack. Okay. So there we go.
I love the fact you've managed to get Google whack in there. That's impressive.
Hey, we are playing word bingo, right? I've still got to get the first
I'm doing well so far.
Are you?
Yeah, doing well so far.
We should take that offline. Yeah, there we go. There's another one. I've still got to get the first chorus of I'm a Little Teapot in somewhere. I'm sure I'll. In fact, we just did it. No, there we go. Right. That's all great, guys. That was a very big whistle-stop tour of Foldr. If you aren't familiar with that and the massively disruptive commercial side of Foldr as well, stick your hand up in the chat there and get one of the guys to organize a demo for you. The thing is amazing. All right. But today we're going to try and make it a bit more amazing by bringing to you MaSH. What is MaSH? Make stuff happen. I will say it didn't start a stuff, but you can kind of work out, but make stuff happen. We have to keep the A because otherwise it didn't make any sense.
Otherwise it'd just be mush.
It would be mush, and mush really isn't as good as MaSH, is it?
No,
I don't know what the difference is.
The marketing team had to go on that one.
I said mush and my dog kind of woke up and started moving. I think she thinks he's a husky. Definitely not. Anyway, what is MaSH? Okay, there you go. There is a tweetable explanation as to what MaSH is. And I am going to read it. I'm going to break my own rules. It's a storage agnostic and accessible automation engine for business processes. Okay, you can drive it by file content, you can drive it by metadata, and your imagination is the limit. And it's, for me, this is what I said at the beginning, that I'm vaguely nervous of this one because it is a script engine. And for anybody who actually goes outside, doesn't live in their mum's basement, you know, isn't see-through, doesn't have band t-shirts for bands they haven't seen, stuff like that, scripting can be a bit of a scary place to go. So there are two sides as to where the MaSH engine really is very, very different, very, very impressive. Okay, and the first one is that it is extremely accessible. Okay, and I'll do my best to explain what that is in a minute when we actually prod the product. I don't mind a bit of product prodding, as you know. The other one is that unlike traditional ECM, where we have to put the documents into a particular repository, they have to follow a set kind of process. And those automations tend to be based on one specific type, you know, flow, like an accounts payable or a HR automation. Do I have this page? Is that on it? That type of automation. MaSH really can, and I'll do my best to give you examples of this today, really can do almost anything, anywhere. So suddenly, our little anything, anywhere understanding of Foldr grows to 4 lines because it's now any outcome. Okay, so what we've got is a script engine that allows us to do almost any task. It can be triggered on multiple different events. So when you upload a folder to a file or a document to a Foldr location, a Foldr share, on a schedule, certain times of the day, go and do something on an event. So somebody has saved something has changed a field value, that kind of thing. Anything can be used. But in terms of the content as well, we can start to work on if a document has something written in it, if a field value is something, if it is in a particular place it shouldn't be. And we're not bothered about whether that is a document with, you know, literally a document, whether it's a digital file, whether, you know, whether it's media. We're going to do some stuff today with sound files just to prove that. And the outcomes, traditional workflow products are generally put this document here, put that data there. What if we wanted to create things? What if we wanted to modify the documents or files themselves? What if we wanted to hunt through metadata, reach out to APIs? And that really is where MaSH goes. It is any outcome. So a real way to understand it is this thing can do anything programmatic right up to the point where you need to physically push a button in a UI if you can't do it programmatically. And shouldn't really say this on this because it's a little bit hush hush, Ben, but there's going to be another unicorn.
Go careful.
There's another unicorn coming. Okay,
oh, maybe
there's the herd is set to grow even further through the summer. We're going to land up with more unicorns. So there we go. All right, how we're going to prod it now. We're going to do some prodding. Not nervous at all, because you know me. All right, I'm all right.
Nothing to be nervous about. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to be worried about at all. I'm trying to find where we go. All right, team. Whew, let's do it. All right, guys, we are now in my Foldr appliance. Okay, this is the back end of my Foldr appliance. So we are, if you like, we are ruffling under the covers. So that's where we are today. But just to prove it, this is the front end of my Foldr appliance. So again, guys, if you are not familiar with Foldr, you need to be. Get on it, get a demo, or let us know if you need another webinar, because we're always wondering what should do webinars on. So, you know, just let us know. I'm going to sign into the front end of Foldr. Okay. Now, I will say this is an environment that's been set up for me to play with MaSH. So we don't have it hooked into all of the different storage that we normally have. Anyone who's seen my usual Foldr demos will know that I normally have OneDrive and Google Drive and my home folders, Box and Dropbox and everything built into this. Today, we are literally only talking about things that I am doing with MaSH. Okay, so I'm just going to point out here. So I'm going to show you a couple of bits that I covered just so as you're aware of what we're talking about. So I come into this finance piece. I will say everything I am doing today is based on an SMB Windows share. We are not using anything clever. We're using the dumbest storage you can find in the most difficult environment to share it from, just because that's who we are. So I'm just going to show you the kind of thing I was talking about there in terms of being able to set field values. So remember I told you that we have a templating engine. This is the amazing Chapter product. It sits over the Foldr thing. This is a full line item extraction invoice template. This is what's running. Let me try and find my space again. And you'll see that I can take a look at that document. This was what was captured, and I can even do smart stuff like this and decide that I would like to see a table. There we go. Line item extraction on an SMB share with field values, and it's fully content searchable, just to prove that this stuff is real and it exists. Okay, so let's take a little bit of a look and try and think about where MaSH is. So let me come, sorry about the clicking, try to remember where everything is. You'll see that the Foldr engine now has MaSH available. Okay, MaSH will be licensed as currently, this may change in the future, but we're starting with this. MaSH will be a one-off perpetual license for the Foldr appliance. So you will license it into your Foldr environment, just like you do with Chapter. You will turn it on, and then it will have an annual maintenance to support it like a traditional software product. Foldr is still itself is licensed on term licenses by users. So you've got a real good mix and match of both. Okay, and you'll see that what we can do in this is literally have store, create, and run scripts. Now, just to give you a quick view of where MaSH itself is super clever. Now, I'm not suggesting that you guys suddenly become coding engines, but you'll see that MaSH has been designed to be extremely accessible. So even if you don't know much about scripting, firstly, there's going to be the examples, the recipes, and of course, the things that we create as we go along, we will make ready for market and we will sell, as will the guys at Foldr themselves. So ultimately, these scripts can and will become products. But if not, what I've learned, having had some sessions with the guys as a guy who can't do scripting, is that you can literally build this up from their snippets in pure language. If you want X to equal 1, it's not a bunch of dots and commas and colons. It is X equals 1, and it will still work. Now, there are times when you do need complicated syntax because the thing can do complicated stuff. But what it means in terms of accessibility is if you're a little bit confident with scripting, you can do quite a lot. From our perspective, it means it's incredibly efficient, okay? It means that what might take in open world days and days and days can be done in a matter of hours or minutes or what have you. So it's enormously efficient. And the driver for that is where custom coding, custom applications, custom anything can add massive amounts of cost to projects and make them unachievable for SMB, SME customers or just unsupportable. MaSH makes that hugely efficient. And I'll give you an example of this in a little moment. But you can see that things color code through. If I decide to take a look, let's take a look at different things. You can see that it will actually start to build out the scripts for me. It will start to give me the values that I need to enter. It will color code it. It's an enormously accessible script engine and a good place to start learning. I've started learning, by the way. I've got it telling me and calling me names if X equals 1 and so on last week with the help of Chris. So even I can kind of make it do some basic stuff. But when you put it in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing, this thing becomes very efficient and very fast. And the engine itself, regardless of what it can do, the actual engine itself is new. It is a novel thing. It is it has been written almost from the ground up by the guys at Foldr. They're enormously proud of it. I'm very excited by it in a sensible way, if you know what I mean. Okay, so I'm going to leave that page. So let's actually see it do something. Let's try and give you an example of something that somebody might ask for in a real world piece. So I'm going to come back into Foldr. Now I am running everything in this combined space, guys. You are seeing MaSH unleashed for the first time. Okay, so we're being vaguely cautious with it. I'm not blowing stuff all over the place. I'm taking a look here at different elements that we've built. So you can see that within MaSH, we have a demo. Okay, so we've got several demos. We're going to play with most of them. But if you take a look at this, what I've got is I've got an invoice file. Now let's remember I could dump that document in, and as it arrives, the template engine is going to pick it up. And if I take a look at that, what you'll see is that file has gone through, it's used my template engine, and it's populated a bunch of information. So I have an invoice in this case because we wanted to pick something you guys would be familiar with. And you'll see that I have line items in here. I have a purchase order number, a supplier name, an invoice number, all that kind of good stuff. The stuff that an invoice might do. Okay, so a capture for an invoice. That's not MaSH, that's captured, but it's kind of cool. But this is accounts payable. What I want is the holy grail. I want three-way matching, but I want that on a line item, and I want it to be super fast and super easy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this nut script. I love that when I ask them to create me scripts, they give them stupid names. Here's my code. There you go. Now you can see there's a whole 130 lines long, not including the first two. And I'm just going to run it. Now, just bear in mind, guys, that scripts can run on events and schedules. Now, from a demo perspective today, I am running them manually because I want them to run so you can see that they're actually happening. But you wouldn't be running, going in and running a script unless you were an admin guy and you wanted to do that. You would have these running when an invoice hits the system, when a schedule kicks off, when something, when someone changes a field value, from pending to approved or whatever it might be, actually in Foldr. But we are doing this, as I say, we are rummaging under the covers. So I'm going to run this. And there you go. That's how quick that was. Not a lot to see. But if we look what actually happens here, okay, if I come into nuts now, there we are. There's still my invoice. So let's take a look in matched. Because now what it's done is it's gone off and it's looked in my purchase orders and my delivery notes. It's found those by line item. It's created me a CSV file, just as an example, with the supplier details, the invoice number, the purchase order number, the net amount, the total amount, and everything else. And that's been done by mining around in the accounts payable archive of simple files. These are not sat in an ECM. They are not sat in a database or a CSV table. These are actual files that all we've done is dumped into a Windows share. And if I take a look, you'll see that capture is has extracted the things that are on that delivery note, there we go, and picked apart the bits that it needs, and then the script has gone off, run a match off of that invoice because it arrived in the system, and delivered the information. That was three-way matching, which is a standard AP process, but we are not needing an ECM engine or anything else to do that. Now, I talked about efficiency for this engine. There's probably guys on this call, I can't see who's actually on the call, but there's probably a lot of guys in this call that have done AP invoice processing, and they know how painful it is and how long it takes, and they're hooking up for DBs and all that kind of good stuff, all right? Chris Wheeler at Foldr created this script for me and then added extra functions in an afternoon from scratch, me actually giving him the files, and he came back with something. Now, in fairness, if you wanted this script running in your instance of Foldr, it's as simple as that. Copy it, slam it in, change the values, and away it goes. And that's where I was talking with MaSH, is that these scripts, these mashlets, as we're going to be calling them, can become productized as well. That means that if you come to us and ask us to create a mashlet for you, if you buy it, you could start to supply that, productize it, put it into your customer base, use it as something you do. If there's a vertical that you know needs something done. And of course, the other bit to keep reminding you on here is this is happening in any storage. So I could run that on a premise server, I could run it in Google, I could stick it into SharePoint, I could leverage documents in OneDrive, I could take a photo with the mobile document scanner of an invoice, I could have Capture recognize it, and then MaSH sit and run my three-way match. Or
I think that's quite commercially important, isn't it, Damien? Because I mean, at the end of the day, traditionally the way it's working is you would have to import this into an ECM solution or whatever it may be, document management solution or anything like that. These documents would need to be imported to run through these processes. Am I right?
That's right. That's right. You know, anyone who plays with Capture generally would know a couple of things. First of all, that all of the documents are going to need to be in a fixed repository or in a database. And if I want to run something like invoice capture, I'm going to have to, I can't just throw it into OneDrive somewhere. I'm going to have to move it to an email address or a watch folder to be picked up by a capture engine and so on. So we're now saying that these processes can run on just about anything, just about anywhere, including capture from mobile as just a core part of the product. So if you like,
we're talking. Sorry, go on.
No, you crack on, mate. You were going to say something. I was going
to. No, I was just going to say. So you can talk about hybrid solutions. You could talk about already existing infrastructure. You could talk about anyone moving from, say, an on-site infrastructure to the cloud. You could have a Google repository with a OneDrive repository. You could have files all over the place. But exactly this is going to be able to be implemented over the top of it, and it's going to be able to run with their business automation.
Yeah, and now, do you know what? We also started with a really boring example, because anyone who's tried to do three-way matching for accounts payable will know that by the time you're in that, you're actually in a fairly complex solution. This is something where we have to talk to customers about capture engines, about zonal OCR, about process engines, where that's going to sit, number of cores, number of volume, pages, fields. Yeah. So we start with something boring to show you that actually we could do it just by throwing it into an SMB share and having stuff spit out. But let's take a look at maybe other things that we can do. So I'm gonna leave that one be. All right. We're just gonna close it. All right. Let's have another look over here, because I kind of have to show you, it's a bit like a magician. I have to show you that my sleeves are rolled up and that my top hat is empty. But let's take a look in here. There's absolutely nothing in this folder, but you'll notice it's called maps, right? So let's go here again. So just to start to give you examples of how open-ended this thing can be. Here's another script. Again, it's 80 lines long. So don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be generating that anytime soon. But this was created in, this is the work of a couple of hours. It's not 3 months work. And if I actually run this script, don't forget, it can be running on a schedule, it can be running on an event. I'm going to click run, and hopefully it's going to do it. And it did. That was it. Doesn't look like much, but if I come back to maps, what it's actually done, okay, is it's taken a look in the invoices folder, and for just because we can, but I can think of uses for it. It's reached out to MapQuest because it's taken a look at the invoice, it's found the supplier's address, and now it's generated me a map. Because, you know, why not? Let's download that. Let's know where all suppliers are. Think about that. This is where all my customers are. This is where my deliveries are. Think about anything like that. But what's interesting here is we are really in the long grass now in terms of capture engines, because that kind of stuff, that does not happen with AutoStore team. And it's starting to give you an idea. Let's maybe go in a different direction again, because we're going to accelerate here a little bit. I'm sure we've got some paper cutters, if you like, on our in our audience and our gang today. Okay, and we often there's a feature in Papercut called print archiving. All right, now a lot of these scripts have been born out of ideas that have come from other people. We're going to talk about that later on as well. But the print archiving tool is there within Papercut to make sure that you have a copy of all of the documents that hit the system. But what would be super cool is to be able to know, okay, if the documents that have been printed contained any data that they shouldn't have. It's good to know that people printed stuff and be able to control it and everything. And it's lovely that Papercut gives us the facility to archive those. But wouldn't it be good to be able to police the data? So this one was created by the clever one, Mr. Scott Mallion, for us. And here we go. What it's going to do, hopefully, is it's going to run a script. Now, you can see here that what it's done is it's looking up against the list, content checker, and it's analyzing all of the pages. And it's found that there are 2 documents have been printed that contain data that they should not have had. They are on the quarantine list. Okay, and just to prove, because you know, I know that showing you script engines is wonderful, but let's just get a little idea, because what's happened now, okay, is my email has just gone off. So I'm going to stop a share because I'm going to prove this. Okay, here we go. And you should see that MaSH has just emailed me as the admin to let me know that some jobs that contain words or phrases or structures that they should not have printed have been found in the print archiving folder. So, you know, this has got a formula name or a project name or a personal postcode or something from a DB, and it's now been identified. And in the full production script that Scott has written, that file is also, if you're doing this not on the Papercut print archiving, but you're looking around a directory, you could actually make Foldr identify documents that have content in them that you do not want, let's say not on the right directory. I have a client files directory. I've gone off and I've checked all of the other storage, and I've found documents with customer order numbers in them, or in legal client reference numbers in them, and they shouldn't be in that storage. So we quarantine them, we move them to a private file and lock them for an administrator. Or we can leverage the Papercut print archiving file, as you are seeing happening right now live.
So good question, Damien. Good question in the chat, mate. Is could you use this for GDPR to get subject access request documents?
Yes, you could do something else. Actually, you could do that with Foldr anyway, because Foldr itself can search on the content of any page, on any document, in any storage. So that really is perfect, certainly with the pin function, to be able to do subject matter requests. You know, please, in fact, here is one of my hand up kind of rules. If you are storing personal information or documents that contain personal information on your network, including image files of documents, so PDFs, scan files, things like that, if you do not have a content search engine archiving over them, you do not have an adequate capability to answer GDPR, right to be remembered, right to be forgotten, and data requests. So you really need to talk to us about Foldr.
And obviously that applies across multiple storage locations as well, because we just had another question come in about searching for PII info across multiple storage locations. But if it's in Foldr, yep, then it can be used across multiple storage locations.
Exactly. Think of this as the all-seeing eye. Indeed. What we've done,
the eye of Sauron. Sorry, I went geeky.
It's because you've got a beard like Christopher Lee. That's what that is.
You shall not pass.
Right, anyway, yeah, well, yeah, that happens a lot wearing this shirt. Anyway, this particular thing is actually a step above that, guys. What it's doing is it's actually reviewing the words on the page of a document that was printed by Papercut, looking in the Papercut print archive file, and then quarantining the documents and sending an email to an administrator to say someone has physically printed a document that has words on it that they shouldn't have printed. That's crazy. Okay, but in terms of policing, yes, of course, why not create a template that looks for your client reference numbers and runs a search on a regular basis using a MaSH script to say, please go and check that there are no documents that contain client reference numbers anywhere on my network other than in my client reference folder where I know the security is adequate. I could even check those up against a database or a list if I want. So I have found this client reference number and it should be in this departmental structure, and it isn't. Things like that can happen with MaSH. But let's take the nuts, the madness a little bit further, okay, guys? Because
before you do that, Damo, sorry, we've got one of the guys with his hand up, so I'm just going to allow them to talk a minute, and we can answer the question. I'm wondering if it's the same question they put in the chat. But Dave, do you want to ask a question, dude, while you're there?
Sorry, it was the same question. I raised my hand first and then I typed it.
Well, hey, I like that. Well, we've done it twice now, so that's all good. No, appreciate the question, Dave. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, lads.
Good to see you, Dave. Well, not see you, but you know what I mean. Okay, guys. So let's think about expanding on that. I know now that I can run scripts to identify content in pages. I can start to alert people. What if I wanted to take it a step further? You'll notice that there's a thing here called redaction. There we go, and you'll see that there is nothing in redaction at all. So let's take a look at our script engine and run a redaction script. Let's see what happens. Okay, just so we can see, let me just go to my original files. Okay, there you go. There's my letter. Let's view a letter. There it is. There's a letter. Okay, now we could go through there and check all that good stuff out, but I'm going to run my script and see what happens. Okay, and you can see if I come back into redaction, now in redacted, I have two versions of that. They have been redacted, or two documents. What MaSH is doing is it is using the Foldr OCR engine. It is OCRing the content. It is not converting that file, by the way, the original file, into a text searchable PDF. As you saw, we're working purely on image files. This is a PNG to prove the point. And it is automatically redacting words from a hot list, okay? And then generating a new copy into the redacted content folder, and the permissions on that folder could of course be adequate. So inbound documents get run through the engine, and then the redacted versions get delivered into a customer facing
That's some
environment.
MI5 stuff there, Damo. That's some high level government stuff.
Can I repeat my favorite bit?
Yes.
On any storage, on any image file, anywhere. And I hate to say it to all the clever ECM types, but I really am kind of like, yeah, bite that. That's kind of where I'm at. So this stuff really is enormously, enormously clever. Should we see if we can think of something else which takes this in another direction?
You can't possibly have more to do, Damo. There can't possibly be more.
Well, how very dare you. Take this one. This one's cool. All right, I like this, because what I'm trying to do, guys, is to it's very difficult when someone gives you a product and you say, what does it do? And they go, what do you want it to do? And the answer is kind of anything. A Lego set. And my parents used to do this to me, Ben. Getting a Lego set with no instructions in it. My parents were mean. They used to give me a Lego set, let me build what was on the box, you know, with the instructions once, and take the instructions away. The problem with MaSH is that it can do almost anything. It really is powered by your imagination. So if you come up with weird processes, things that you might want to do, then we can do it in MaSH, and we can do it anywhere, and that's kind of cool. So let's give you another example here.
Well, two seconds, Damo. We've got another raised hand. Sorry, Dave, did you have another question, mate? Hang on.
Yes, lads. Thanks. Sorry, just a quick one. In terms of these scripts, is there going to be kind of is the intention to supply it with a library of some of these, or what way will that work?
Very good question, Dave.
We'll bash through the examples, and then we'll talk about that in the commercials at the end.
Okay, cool.
Promise.
Honest, we will give you the good stuff, Dave. Don't worry. I promise, mate.
I'm already mind blown.
Right, go on, keep blowing mind.
It's a thing. All right, okay. We've got an empty folder full of certificates. There is nothing in there. What there is in here is a list, okay? In terms of certificates, there is a list of people that are certified. So we could do this for a file. So here's some people that have done some stuff. Julie Andrews, she's a big fan of MaSH. All right, I'm just saying.
I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, well, honestly, I can't get the woman to leave me alone. Anyway, let's do this. Let's say to MaSH, wouldn't it be cool? These are the people that have done some stuff. They've done some training. So look at this, 47 lines. That's all it is. Let's go run. And off it goes. Look how quick that did that. So again, running things at a script level is enormously efficient. Now let's take a look at certificates. There's no, we're in the wrong place. I've broke it, mate. I've broke it. No, I haven't.
Oh,
Here we
you
go.
had to do it.
Certificate.
There we go.
There she is. Our Julie. Look at that. Certificate of Achievement for Julie Andrews, as generated by the one, the only MaSH engine. And the last example script I'm going to do today to show you, because now we're talking about data processes like three-way matching and sending data directly out to outside systems via APIs, via text files, via emails, mining content, creating field values, redacting images, reaching out to MapQuest APIs or any API. Now we're producing full documents from a list, certificates and stuff that could be driven from something as simple as a form. All of this is happening now, but we really wanted to kind of go where other people fear to tread. Now, we are document people, guys, but we have a project at the moment archiving away 2 terabits of recorded phone calls. You know, when you phone up and it says, your call may be recorded for training purposes. Do you know?
I remember it well.
Yeah, well, they don't record it for training purposes. They record it for legal purposes and they store it. And telephone providers charge an inordinate amount of money for that data storage. And that storage is big because sound files are not small, okay? And they generally store them as WAV files. And WAV files have no data in them other than the file name, apart from some ID tags. And those tags are very difficult to do anything with. How do I find them? So let's take a look at this. Yeah, so the call center. This is just an MP3 file, and you'll see all of our field information is useless because that field information is driven by templates, unless, of course, you're a masher. So let's take a look at this. Have we got the script running? No, we've got another script. Let's do it. Call center ID3 tags. Okay, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to run it. And that's all it does. Okay, but now when I take a look, let's refresh as I need it to. Let's just go back in. I think I am pushing the system fairly hard. Let's go to call centers. Let's take a look here. Let's take a look at the fields. And you'll see that it is mined through the ID3 tags of an MP3 sound file and has now made that searchable based on those ID3 tags and made that available to search. And because this is Foldr, I will give this a go. Let's add a condition. Let's go into here and let's go calls operator and search for Denise. There she is. Okay. And because, let's see whether I can do this. Now, I'm not sure if I can do this actually, but let's just
pushing the boundaries, Demo. Push the boundaries. I like it.
Boom. Because as I start to expand my search within Foldr, in any storage, on any file, anywhere, okay, now don't forget, not only is that a sound file that we are now archiving based on metadata tags that you couldn't find and MaSH did it automatically, that was a mouthful. We're also now looking at metadata field values that we are searching on in an SMB Windows directory. So I mentioned earlier that thing about other ECM providers. I think we've gone from Bite Me to probably a little bit further. Okay, we really are doing all sorts of clever.
The commercial side of it, mate, the telephone one specifically, I mean, the costs of the storage for those services is astronomical, right?
Yes, absolutely insane. So take a look at it. Go talk to your phone company, your customers. Have you got call recording? Yes. Where do you store it? Oh, well, it's part of my telephone package. Is it really? Have you got a ton of storage from Google or Microsoft? Would you like to save yourself tens of thousands of pounds a year? Yes, I would. Let me talk to you about MaSH. Now, this isn't one, guys, that we are thinking about. This is one we are actively doing. We are currently in the midst of a project with some really cool people, and we are archiving 2 terabits. So you can imagine the cost of this from their suppliers' perspective, 2 terabits of WAV files. So there we go. It's a real deal. Guys, it's MaSH. It's remarkable. Hopefully you can see why I'm so excited about it. But now I really need to explain why we've done it the way we've done. In the last 10 minutes, Ben, we are going to go back To my unicorns.
Yeah, let's go back to the
Hopefully you
unicorns, mate.
can.
We haven't
Let's
had
go
a
some
unicorn
unicorns.
break for a long time. I think
Here we go.
they're absolutely right in the chat as well. We know why you're wearing shirts, dude. It's because you got superpowers. This is it. You are the new superhero.
Do you know the best thing about this, guys, is I am getting to be the delivery vehicle for the clever that is the guys at Foldr and the guys at Select Tech. I will say that we are a huge part of this with the guys. I will hold my hand up and rub my ego a little bit, but actually to rub my ego, I don't put my hand up. But anyway, that's a different thing. This has stemmed from a conversation with Foldr 2 years ago. We've held our hands up and said that in Select Tech, we don't think we got the handle on Foldr for the first year or so that we had it. And when we actually went back and revisited that and talked to the guys about how it was structured, the first change they made was how the data was stored, where the OCR, the search engines were stored, where that was powered. So Foldr looked the same, but it was fundamentally changed. And all of those things that are sat under it are now what makes things like MaSH possible. It's been a real journey with Foldr. And the great and amazing thing is we know that there's a lot more clever coming our way that we're heavily involved in. So this is a product that is still very much on that up curve. And the workflows that we're working on at the moment are literally because Foldr take a look at this from a new data-driven perspective. Capture engines, and we sell capture engines, guys. We have the absolutely remarkable global capture and global search products, and we use them in some incredible environments. But they're based on a concept that's been around for a long time: document capture, OCR, metadata, DB lookups. Foldr are looking at this from an entirely different perspective, knowing that users have storage, they have files everywhere, they have to work with outside organizations for whom they do not want to give licenses to their ECM platforms. They know that VPNs are a problem, mobile working. So this is fresh, it's new, it's coming from a new place. But we have finished prodding it for now. Hopefully, guys, some of those examples got you thinking and really started to, what I was looking to do was to have such a broad breadth of stuff that it was doing that you saw that we weren't within the normal traditional bounds of a product in our industry.
I think it's
so
it's worthwhile mentioning that this is going to be a full launch as well from us, isn't it? There is a lot of information around this, which is going to be coming out. So, this is just scratching the tip of the iceberg.
That's right. And exactly. And there you go. So far, yeah, we've done some of the things that you've seen, but it really is the tip of the iceberg, guys. You know, we kept coming up with new things. Dave, who's spoken today, he threw something in our direction yesterday and we went, yeah, okay, we can do that. You know, so this is growing all the time. So just come back to us.